Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Laura Schilling. I'm the content specialist for teacher programs here at LACMA. And to give a little verbal description of myself, I am a white woman with curly blonde hair. I'm wearing an oatmeal colored, very fuzzy sweater that's keeping me warm in my cold apartment. I am where you usually find me, which is in my dining room with some white closet doors behind me and some abstract art on the wall. I'm so pleased to welcome you back to Evenings for Educators, LACMA's oldest professional development program for teachers. If you would like to access captions today, go ahead and click, I think you click view full transcript at the bottom. We don't have a live captioner today, but we do have a live transcript that's automated, it's generated automatically by Zoom. So we want to make sure that you know about that accessibility feature. My colleague Susie Castillo is here providing tech support today, so any tech related questions can be directed towards her, and she's going to come on and introduce herself real quick.
Hello everyone, I'm Susie. I'm a light-skinned Latina woman. I have short dark hair, I have glasses, I have a gray sweater, and behind me is a very bright light. It's very dark in my room. But if y'all have any questions, just feel free to shoot me a message in the chat. And Lara, the captioner, just arrived.
Awesome, thanks for that information. Thank you, captioner, for joining us. So I'm going to start by sharing a land acknowledgement today from my current residence on ancestral Tongva land in South Los Angeles. And we have that on the next slide. LACMA respectfully acknowledges that the lands on which our museum is built and the region that we serve is the ancestral and unceded territories of the Gabrielino Tongva, Gabrielino Kich, Fernandeño Tataviam, and Ventureño Chumash peoples. Los Angeles has been and is home to many Indigenous peoples. So thank you again for joining us. It's Thursday, we're almost to the weekend, we're almost to the holidays. I know we're all kind of holding on for that, so just want to say thank you so much for being here, joining us tonight. I'd also love to know how many of you were at the school night on Tuesday. I already saw a few folks who were. I saw Connie, Jamie, Christina in the waiting room earlier. Is there anybody who was there on Tuesday night who wants to just share a little bit about their experience? I personally found it really special to get to see some of you in person again. If anybody wants to come on mic, please feel free.
I was there, Linda. And yeah, I was just really, really impressed by it. And I was also impressed by all the other portraits, you know, I guess the African-American or whatever it was just beautiful.
Yes, you're talking about the Black American Portrait Show. It is stunning. I mean, so much attention has gone to the Obama portraits, rightly so, but the Black American Portraits exhibition is really out of this world. And we really just want to invite you all to try and come and see it before it closes in April. You have quite a bit of time still. And thank you, Genesis. Yeah, we had some teacher giveaways and it was a really nice event. So thank you all of you who were able to come. So today is the last day of the Portraiture, Identity and Community Evenings for Educators program. And we're gonna wrap up with a multimedia workshop that looks at an artwork that's in the Black American Portraits exhibition. And just as a reminder, the Obama portraits are up until January 2nd. Black American Portraits you have until April 17th. And we do have a promo code for teachers to come to the museum for free with a guest. And that's in a document that Susie is going to share in the chat right now. You can sign up for our mailing list if you're not on it. Save that teacher promo code. You'll enter it right before checkout when you're getting tickets on the museum's website. And that promo code will be good all through the year. Also in the document, Susie's sharing our curricular resources and online courses. We created some really extensive resources about the Obama portraits and Black American portraits exhibitions. So make sure you check those out. We would love to hear your feedback on them. You can always send us an email, either to my email which I'll put in the chat in a little bit, or to our educate@lacma.org email. So after we finish tonight's workshop, we're going to be taking a little break for the holidays, and we'll come back in February with another Evenings for Educators program that looks at the relationship between art and activism through some really amazing posters and other graphics in our collection. And as many of you know, E4E is a salary point course through LAUSD. If you're participating for credit, just make sure you fill out the bottom portion of the survey that Susie's going to share in the chat at the end of the program, a little bit before 6 p.m. So I'm going to now introduce today's teaching artist, Katy Unger. Katy received her Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Pacific Northwest College of Art in Portland, Oregon. She experiments with processes in painting, mixed media, and video art, and currently divides her time between creating in her home studio and working as an arts educator with LACMA. As a teaching artist, she is committed to making the arts an accessible resource for individuals and organizations throughout Los Angeles and providing meaningful connections between art, the environment, and community. Thanks, Katy.
All right, thank you, Laura. And thank you everybody for joining this evening. I'm really excited to do this workshop with you all and hear what you think about it. Yeah, again, my name is Katy. I am a white woman. I have short shoulder length hair that's pulled back into a little ponytail. I've got a long black sleeve shirt on and am sitting in a small room with white curtains and a black shelf to my left. And then in the corner, I've got some kind of half finished paintings, which I don't know if you can see or if they're kind of hidden away. So again, great to be here with all of you and excited to get started. So for this workshop, what we're going to be doing is transforming a printed photograph into a symbolic mixed media work of art, a portrait that is inspired by the quilted portraits of Bisa Butler. And the portrait that you choose, the idea is to commemorate somebody whose story inspires you. And this workshop is really going to be about kind of experimenting, different approaches. Don't have to have anything finished. It's really about kind of experimenting with different approaches and techniques to mixed media portraiture. So on the next slide, and we'll look at the materials. So for this evening, the individual you choose to feature for your portrait can be really, it's pretty open. So this can be an individual from history. It can be from pop culture, from your family, a friend, a personal mentor. And if you already have a printed image, that's great. But you can also, you can have an image that's printed from a picture online. It could be a magazine image. And if you don't have an image to start with, I'm going to show you a couple ways that you can do some kind of a transferring of something online to into a drawing. So a lot of different options here. And then we're also going to be using, some pencil or pen, some writing or drawing materials, and then pattern paper, scraps. This can be any sort of collage material. You can get like construction paper, newspaper scraps, really anything that you might want to use for collaging into the portrait. And then a glue stick, any glue really, and then some scissors. But we're going to be doing some mostly ripping, I would say. So those are the materials, and then we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so here's some keywords that we're going to look at while we're doing the project. So the first one is value. We're going to be talking a bit about value. So when you're looking at value in this context, it's really, you're thinking about the sun, the source of light, and what are those brightest colors. So if you look at the hands and the fingers, you've got these different, okay, sorry, I'm just, as I'm talking, 4 values. Yeah, that's about, I see that. So you can kind of see just within this small section, you can see this kind of value scale from dark to light, from the brightest shades to the shades that would be in the shadows, which are those like blues and purples, all the way up to those yellows and oranges right at the highlight of the fingers. So value, we're going to be exploring this more. And then the next slide, fiber art. So while this isn't going to be our focus, this is Bisa Butler is a fiber artist. So fiber art, this is the photographs here, this is all student work. So fiber art just refers to art which uses textiles such as fabric, yarn, and natural and synthetic fibers. So it's pretty amazing when you look back at that last slide, you know, you might think it's a painting, but this was all done from fabric, all of her work. Okay, and then the next slide, narrative art. So this is just, you know, the idea of narrative art is art that tells a story, and our focus is going to be portraiture. So how do you kind of tell a story through portraiture? And we're going to be looking at different ways and approaches to how you can kind of tell a narrative through mixed media art and portraiture. Okay, and then I think that, oh yeah, one more. So mixed media art is just art that is, and I'm curious if any of you have done mixed media art before. It's just using different materials in one piece of art. So you can use, you know, paint, if you mix painting, collage, using paper, markers, magazine, cutout, fabric, you know, the basic idea is just art that's composed from a combination of different materials. And that's what we're going to be doing this evening. All right, so now let's just take a moment to look at this artwork by Bisa Butler. This piece is titled Forever. And we'll talk a little bit more about it after, but just starting out, just maybe focus on, so this is all the same work. There's kind of some close-ups, but starting with the image on the right, and maybe starting with the background, the setting, and just what are some ways you would describe the background and setting? And just looking at this piece. All right, Genesis says nature. Yeah. It looks tropical, says Marie. Multiple fantastical, fantasy like nature, tropical, greens. Pattern, you're noticing the different patterns, his homeland, texture. And I was going to ask, does it feel realistic or imagined? And somebody said fantasy, so maybe a little of both, because you're talking about certain places like tropical places and focusing on nature, but then you're seeing kind of a fantasy element, magical realism. Oh, I like that. Dreamlike, magical, repetition and patterns. Yeah, mythical and realistic. Yeah, so you're noticing all these different elements to the background and kind of the feeling and getting a sense of the setting, and if it's feels of this world or maybe imagined or from fantasy. And then kind of zooming into the pictures on the left, which are zoomed into his face, his hands, and maybe thinking about the pose and the expression and the clothing. What do you notice in the expression, the clothes, the pose, looking more at the subject of this art? Confident and regal, confidence, you're seeing confidence, bold, proud, strong, open, curious, ready. Yeah, so these are great observations, and just kind of thinking about how this setting now ties into this individual, and are there any kind of connections? Is it starting to tell a story? Do you see any symbolism? So these are all kind of things to be thinking about and observing as you're looking at this artwork. I'm going to tell you a bit about this artwork as I look at these comments. There's still more coming in. Pose to move, cloak over a suit. So Bisa Butler is a fiber artist that creates hyper-real portraits that celebrate African Americans of all eras, ages, backgrounds. And her quilted portraits consist of different materials such as cotton, velvet, wool, silk, and she uses vibrant colors, textures, and patterns that draw upon her own cultural background and experiences. And this piece, Forever, is a quilted portrait in tribute to the actor and playwright Chadwick Boseman, who passed away last year, just 2020. And so she created this in tribute to him, and she included, when she presented this work of art, she included a quote, which we'll link to in a second. And just, if you take a minute to just read this quote. So when she posted this, she posted it on social media when she kind of revealed this portrait with this quote. And you can kind of think about these, the description in the quote, and like, does it tie to this artwork? What are the ways like that this description kind of ties with maybe your own words, the artwork, and thinking about this narrative that she's telling from, you know, this individual and this quote. So she finds, Bisa Butler finds inspiration from black and white photographs depicting African-American individuals from the past, which she sources from historic archives, often to tell stories that may have been forgotten. And I love this quote that she includes because it kind of, it references her as a little girl and where this inspiration came from. And so she says, I was a little girl who would sit next to my grandmother and ask her to go through old family albums. I was the one who wanted to hear the story behind every picture. This inquisitiveness has stayed with me to this day. I often start my pieces with a black and white photo and allow myself to tell the story. So I thought this was a really beautiful quote. And then she takes these photos. If you go to the next slide, she takes these, she kind of researches these photos, the people, the time, the place where they were taken, and then reconstructs them in fabric with bright colors and bold patterns, often gathered from traditional African textiles. And then the idea is she's kind of creating these new narratives through color and pattern. And so lastly, just want to leave this with this quote and ask you, so it says, the history is a story of men and women, but the narrative is controlled by those who hold the pen. And thinking about this quote and just kind of sitting with it, what do you think she might be referring to here? And if you were to kind of introduce this quote to your students, maybe before doing a portraiture activity, how do you think they might interpret this? Any thoughts on this quote, what it means to you, what you think she might be saying here?
Hi, Katie. I don't know if I can be heard.
Yeah.
Okay. I think if showing this to students, having them a moment to take it in and process, you're empowering them, like you are in control of the narrative that you're going to create. And
I love that.
It's your chance to retell in your own words. So I say
that's beautiful. Yeah, that's a beautiful interpretation. I love that. Yeah. yeah, there's a lot of, different interpretations, and I love that about this quote. And I totally agree. I think it's a great way to start off an art project and just remind them, this is, like you said, you're sharing this story. Yeah, in thinking about that quote and doing this activity with your students, if they are researching an individual for their art, kind of a historic individual to feature in their art, it might be a good question, and might lead to some interesting discussions, and maybe having them consider the sources, that they find in terms of different articles and photographs, and maybe even looking at some discrepancies among sources in order to compile them together and kind of, as you were saying, create their own narrative. So in thinking about how to, start it, obviously it's going to start with finding a subject to choose. And this could depend on the subject that you're working with, obviously, and the themes you're working with your students. But they could also research someone from their own community, perhaps looking at different public places, public sites, buildings, and thinking about the name behind these, maybe public monuments or buildings in their own community. For instance, at LACMA, we work with the AC Bilbrew Library in Willowbrook, which is in South LA. And I was really fascinated to read the history of AC Harris Bilbrew. She was a civil rights activist, an advocate for women's rights and children's literacy. She was a poet, musician, composer, playwright. She was the first Black soloist on radio in 1923. And she hosted the city's first African-American radio music program in the 40s called the Gold Hour. And in looking up her history, I found a few photographs online, and I chose this one just because of it's a close-up. You see this expression in her face, and you can see these different values too. So you can see kind of the lighting. I just felt like this was a good one to focus on in terms of all of these different elements all working together. So then you want to think about how you can transform an old photograph into a work of art and kind of tell a story about them. So I'm going to show you this example. This is mixed media work of art. And you can do this through thinking about the value. So starting with value and using different materials. So say you're doing collage, using kind of unconventional colors, in a sense inspired by Bisa Butler. So I'm just going to show you, you can, I like to save all of my scraps from, whether it's like old artworks or anything, junk mail, any sort of scraps that you think might go well into a collage. So these are dark values, medium, and then you can get into your brightest values. I have some foil here because materials that reflect the light. It's great for your really bright values. And another thing is, so that's kind of exploring, different patterns, different colors, values. And then in terms of telling a story, these were all printed on just different colored construction paper. And these are from newspaper articles that I found, just looking her up. This was just from Wikipedia. And then if you scroll down, you'll see all these references at the bottom, and you can look at those references, and there'll be, perhaps you'll find a lot more than you can just find from just kind of keywords and typing in the name. So these were some old newspapers, old photographs from when, she was younger. And then with younger students particularly, they can also, draw and add symbols that tie to the individual story. They can draw, they can add it, into the collage, or even draw or write directly on the printed image. And then lastly, I just want to show you some different, a couple different techniques. So say you want the collage to, or the portrait to start with a drawing instead of a printed image. So pull up this photograph. So you can pull up a photo online onto like an iPad or even the computer, working directly from the computer, and then just grab a thin piece of paper, printer paper, put it over the image, and you can see that image coming through, and then just do an outline. That way. So that's one way to transfer the image into a drawing. The other way, real quickly, there's a fun example is this is some plastic wrap over the image, and you can take it has to be a washable marker. So I just kind of taped the plastic wrap, stretched it over the image. And I'm just going to do this really quickly just to show you. And if you just kind of trace the outline, face, I'm not going to do the whole face. And then you're going to grab another piece of paper. This can be any kind of paper. And just add a little bit of water to the paper, just get it slightly damp. And then you can just put that piece of paper right over the top, press it down. And this is fun because you never really know what you're going to get, but there you go. So it transfers the image. It's a nice way of like kind of do-it-yourself printmaking. All right. So now I'm really curious to know what you all have. This is really, just wanted to kind of show you these different approaches. And I like to start with the background. And so kind of first starting with your values. So if you're collaging directly into the portrait, starting with, we've got some dark values here. I love ripping as well, because it kind of has that painterly feel, keeps the edges soft. So let's just kind of begin. You can, again, this is whatever you have to work with. You can collage, you can, create different values just from colors right onto the printed image. So for instance, if the printed image is kind of a flat background, like maybe it's just one color, maybe then you would have one consistent value all the way through. But you can see here, we've got brights, medium, and the darkest values, and just start collaging into the image. Grab some glue. Does anybody have any questions? I've been talking for a while. So when you're working with the face as well, you can see here, you've got all of these different kind of, we've got our darkest shades too. One of the things I like to do, so you can see in this one, I use the greens for the shadows. And if you take a marker and you kind of study that curve of the face and just do kind of your best interpretation of that. And then cut out that edge. And then you can kind of rip to create this kind of softness that you can blend in your other values with. So what are you all working with? I'm curious, and feel free to unmute yourself. Do you are you working with a printed image, or are you kind of just thinking about what you might work with? Did you have a specific image in mind? Photograph of somebody? Ooh, Shakira, magazine cutout of Shakira. Great. So you can see this is a really bright value, so I could plug that in. Right. See these, the nose, and these are usually the brightest, like bottom lip, nose, forehead. And I like to kind of work on all areas at once to kind of spread it around. So I found this, old picture of her. And again, if you don't, obviously you're not going to have all of these prints from articles and old pictures this evening, but if maybe with your students, if they do have time to kind of do some research from different sources that they could print out, or just create, drawings right in the collage to add. I'm gonna put this up here because this is kind of a medium value. Donna says Elton John, excellent.
Hey, Ani, did you have a question? I see your hand is raised.
Another thing that I like to do is once you get your collage kind of started, it helps to go over the lines, because it's really easy to kind of lose those lines and those dark edges. So if you kind of outline some of the features with dark lines, it'll just help kind of be a guide as you go forward. Oh, time is going by quickly. feel like I talked for like too long.
We're gonna share the link to the artwork slideshow in the chat. I know everybody is probably still kind of in the early stages of their work, but we'd love to see it no matter what stage you're at. So yeah, Susie just put the link in the chat and we'll head into the breakout rooms in just a minute too.
Yeah, I mainly just wanted to, I know I'm sorry for not having more time for art making, but just, yeah, just different approaches, because mixed media art is, there's so many different ways, not only in terms of the technique of, you know, using different materials and thinking about value and pattern and color, but also, you know, thinking about how you can kind of commemorate this individual, you know, add elements that are pieces of their story. All right, so looks like we're all trickling back in. Wow, would anyone like to share whoever did this or?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna turn on my camera, but I'm here, and I did this. I did this a couple of months back, and so I was just
good.
I found like a strip that my two nephews and my niece, they went into like a photo booth. So I didn't want. I was thinking of putting it on a coaster, and so I took a picture of it and then enlarged it a little bit, and then I had these two pictures of my mother and my father, and I really love I don't know if they do it as much here, but well, I think back in the day in the 50s and definitely like in Mexico, they're really into the colorized portraits. So I was interested in that kind of look.
That's so what did you draw over the photograph, or how did you, or is that?
Yeah, well, in the one on the left of my niece, I took a picture of her, and then I drew, I painted, and then the flower is like I actually I just gave some to my students for a Day of the Dead. So that was like that was the main like collage. So I didn't, you know, do as much collaging as you. And then I used different stuff on the coasters, like nail polish.
Oh wow.
And gold powder that I got a while back to kind of practice kintsugi, which is I'm interested in. And then yeah, and then I you know, I don't know, I just did a bunch of stuff, and then I've started, I'm not quite done with them. I need to like put the varnish on so it doesn't get wet and stuff. So
wow, I love seeing this all together, like in terms of, yeah, like this narrative. It's just it's a really unique work and how you laid it all out.
Thank you. And I put a picture of you. I hope that's okay. And of you working.
Oh, cool.
Like I really like somebody was saying, like I really like seeing you work. So and I love just like the as a photograph of your process.
Yeah, that's a fun photo. You see all the elements.
Right. I noticed that there's a lot of blues, like your nail polish is blue, and then the background. And
wasn't even intended. Oh, thank you for sharing. This is wow.
Thank you, Katy.
Really great, really cool. Thank you. All right. Women on a Mission. That's great. So this is looks like from different magazine elements. Would anyone like to, whoever did this, or anyone want to comment here? Great statement.
I'm the artist, Genesis Hernandez. Similar to last week's workshop, I use Post-its because I don't have construction paper. This is kind of, I'm adding more like the values. I'm not an artist, by the way, but here we go.
Hey, this is art.
And for me, it was, I just grabbed a magazine. It was a Latina woman in the magazine, so representation, who I am. And then the woman on a mission, because it's woman, so empowering of all women. And I mainly emphasize like the hands, she's kind of holding, like gripping hard on things. So I think if I had more chance to develop this, it would be like the narrative. It's, you know, woman empowering woman having power, and the colors have no significance, but it was just, they pop.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're thinking of, yeah, that value just bright.
Original cover, she looks very sexy, and I think there's more to a woman than sexiness. So
yes,
I covered her up with flowers.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I love that you're like thinking about that that gesture too, which is, you know, kind of takes a minute to notice, but it took me a minute to notice that. But yeah, these like clenched hands and
thanks, Dana.
Yeah, excellent work.
Thank you.
And statement. Yeah.
And then just to the question, I teach high school 9 through 12 language. And I'm so thankful because this is my final exam next week.
Okay.
I think in being intentional with something that connects to my students, a lot of them are newcomers, so they're new to the United States. So
yeah.
Like the quote even works perfect because it's identity, the theme that they've been exploring this first semester. So I think it'll be really intentional in them having power to their own creation. So thank you for this.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, just talking about identity and thinking about how that relates to them, and kind of beginning a project with that statement in mind. Oh wow. Oh, that's really interesting. This looks like yeah, and thank you for, I know we're a little over time, so thank you. If anyone can stay, that's great. Just kind of we'll just take a couple more minutes to look at the artwork, but if anybody wants to share and talk, this one, that one, these are they're all just so unique, and I just like adding these little kind of elements, like this little piece of paper with some text on it. It's so intriguing, and just like those kind of choices. And that's what I love about, you know, mixed media and collage is these choices you make that are really your own, you know, through your own process. So if anybody else would like to share, maybe comment on this one, and or the artist.
This one is mine. And it's kind of, I just use color pencil and a little bit of marker, but it's a picture of my mom when she was 10 on one side and when she was 80 on the other.
Whoa.
So I just kind of went with the color pencils because I was teaching a class in the beginning of this. So my classes are let out till 5:30. And, but I was trying to follow along. And I do like, this is kind of like how I paint, like the painting behind me. I actually did that on my phone. So I use a lot of color in my work, and I always like to use a black and white photograph first, and then decide on my colors, like you were saying, with the values and things like that. So
that image behind you is just in terms of color, it's amazing. Wow, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so just thank you all so much for sharing your work. And I know we didn't have a lot of time, but again, I'm always so amazed by what you can come up with in such a short amount of time. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, everybody. Happy holidays. I know this is the final push. You can do it. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. And we will see you back with Evenings for Educators in February. And then we'll have the Educator Speaker Series in March. So looking forward to seeing you then. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.